morning, everyone. Hope you've had a great start of today and listening to some interesting conversations and presentations this morning. And let's try to make this as interactive as possible. So feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. Feel free to ask questions. If there's any direction you want me to take on this conversation, feel free to, since we have this technology to do so. So this topic of my talk is about connection, about connecting and connection, which is a topic really close to my heart. When Jason asked me to talk about this topic, at first I actually didn't know what to say because it's something that comes so second nature to me. And when he asked, how come you're at this place doing this thing with this person? It's not super obvious, so I really had to spend some time connecting the dots backwards and trying to figure out what are some of the things I can share with you. So I'm really excited to kickstart this session. And yeah, let's get started. So I'm going to share a little bit about me and my journey. And I'm going to divide this into 3 sections. The first section is a little bit about what I'm thinking. So like about my inner game, what's my mentality. And the second part, I'm going to talking a little bit about what I'm doing, some of the strategies that I'm doing, maybe consciously or maybe some of them not so consciously. And then at the third part, I'm going to share some real life examples of my entrepreneurial stratagems. And the reason why Jason from UPPSTART asked me to talk about this topic, I think he has seen me traveling all over the world. I'm being self-employed, I've been entrepreneur for the last decade. And during my journeys, I traveled to over 100 countries on 7 continents and met and worked with some of the best entrepreneurs, you can say, in the world, such as Jack Ma, Richard Branson, Elon Musk, celebrities from Hollywood. So I think he was curious about how did I do that. And for me, lots of things didn't come super obvious, but I'm trying to break it down for you. So first of all, we have to know ourselves. What are some things that appeal to ourselves and what are some things that come difficult? For me, I'm right in the middle of being an introvert and extrovert. So for me, I love conversations one-on-one. I also love going to big parties. However, I need to rest if I'm doing this too often, or if I'm missing this is like personal touch. So I tend to be, depending on what kind of test you're doing, I tend to be between those two. And similarly, I'm also the type of person that sometimes I'll plan ahead. Other times I very much go with the flow. So those are things that I don't care too much. And I sort of like move in between. Whereas other things, I like big pictures. I like to think about the future. I'm really excited about creating possibilities. I'm excited about getting on new adventures. So I know those are the kind of things that really energize me. And I love thinking deeply. So I tend to search out opportunities where I feel more at home and try to avoid those that I don't feel completely comfortable with. I think it definitely helps just knowing what kinds of people, situations that you feel really comfortable with and which are the ones that you feel less comfortable with. For example, in terms of presentation, I'm much more comfortable in a smaller group in-person meetings rather than giving big presentations. So that's just my style. And I had to adapt in several situations. I'm originally from China. I came to Sweden when I was 10 years old and lived in Sweden until I was 18, and then traveled to the UK to study. And later I lived in Chamonix, was a ski bum for a while, and also lived in the US. So for each of the country, I had to adapt, also learning new language, new culture, and doing things differently. So I often had to recreate my social network. I had to recreate my own identity. And each time I just learn a little bit more about myself, but also learning about each each other in ways that I feel at this stage, I pretty much can relate to most people in one way or another. And I definitely would recommend traveling, talking to people from all over the world. And I think being immersed in a culture, if you have the opportunity, go live in a country for a couple of years, definitely help to make you maybe less judgmental about people that think and do things differently. And perhaps maybe you would change as well along the way. And in terms of creating connections, it is about giving, really. It is about the more you give, the more you have to give. And often we want to be in a position where we can give without expecting anything in return. And for me, this is something that came to me when I was studying in high school as part of International Baccalaureate, where we had these classes, we had to go out on volunteering. I spent my time volunteering at Red Cross and Greenpeace and really enjoyed the experience. So even after I graduated from high school, I continued this just as a part of life. And later I taught at university and as a part of Oxbridge Cultural Exchange Project, so where we traveled to developing countries, especially in Southeast Asia, and taught English for the children. So it's a very enriching experience. And nowadays I still spend quite a lot of time volunteering, both for new experiences, getting to know new people. Just about last week, I was volunteering at a conscious camping camp where I'm helping out with the dishes, even though it's not something I would normally do, but it does get me out of my comfort zone, everyday life. So nothing is too high or too low, and it's all good fun. So also this kind of thing feeds each other. The more you learn, the more you have to teach, and the more opportunities opens up. So I would very much recommend volunteering, even if you just volunteer for an hour or 2 hours. It helps both you and the people you're giving your time to. And the other thing I want to stress is about listening. I didn't really know how to listen, not properly, while I was at university. I joined something called Nightline, and this is a student-run charity where people can just call a number and someone will be there listening, not necessarily give advice, but just holding space so that they have some human touch, some person that will listen to your conversation. I was really fascinated by Nightline because they taught us this deep listening techniques where, for example, you don't introduce new vocabulary into conversation, rather you're really trying to understand the point of view from the other person. And that led me to volunteering at the Samaritans, which is a helpline for people who are struggling emotionally. And then later on, as one of my first career, I joined the United Nations. I was an army officer, and I worked primarily on civil military coordination. And parts of the work I do very much is trying to understand each other from both points and trying to find a common language. And later on, I took courses at nonviolent communication, understanding what are our needs, what are our feelings, and how it is expressed, and how can we understand each other in a deeper level instead of getting into arguments or situations that doesn't really help. And later on, I got certified as a coach with New Ventures West, not professionally, but this is just as a personal passion of mine that I just think it's so interesting because our words create our reality. I'm just going to go through this very quickly. The other thing is about caring, and I was really inspired by one of my figure skating students that he would bring figure to our figure skating practices out of his own will, and this actually created such a nice atmosphere that we became friends. And just some simple gesture as breaking bread together, helping people to connect. And the final one of this inner game, I would say, just treat everyone as someone that you want to be friends with. If not today, maybe sometime in the future. From our Chinese proverbs, we say, in any situation where there's 3 people, there's something we can learn. There is a teacher amongst 3, because if there's something positive, we can learn from the positive side. And if there's something negative, we can also try to learn from that and to avoid the future situations. So I'm now going to delve into the 6 things I would do on a regular basis. And one of the things is to stay in touch with people I met through either school, previous jobs, other networks I was part of. It's not something I do maybe on monthly basis, but I'll make sure that maybe I check in with people on quarterly or annually basis. And I think it's just a way of keeping in touch. Once in a while, if I feel I haven't been checking in with people, I just have a reminder. I'm the only child, so I do check in with my parents very often. I see them almost every week. And we sing with my grandparents. We talk on a weekly basis. So I like to keep my close ones very close. And another thing I want to share is to aim high. Even if you're starting out as a beginner and you don't know anything, but there are people who do not have the knowledge. So for example, when I started with sports, doing Ironman or started skiing, I didn't know how to do it, but I search out for the people who are best in their game and hire them as my private coach, even though just for a few hours or maybe a day. And through that contact of learning from the best, then we create a common language, create a common understanding. So it helps me to tell what does good look like, and it helps me to set the bar for my own game as well. And another thing is that when it's a short of time, I find it easier to bring people together, let them come to you by organizing dinners, organizing parties, and I always have such a fun. I used to rent a kitchen once a month, and I would get friends together. And in this industrial kitchen, you can play music very loud, and there's sound isolation, so everyone has a really good time, and we get to cook together. And you don't always have to create your own event. And if you don't want to create it, there are things like TED. You can create TEDx events. I have to bring the Star Machine and Startup Weekend to Sweden. So you can model after other success cases and help to bring things that doesn't exist to your own community. In terms of time management, I would create this WhatsApp groups, location-based WhatsApp groups. So this is an example of my friends in Barcelona. I don't go there very often, but I do visit from time to time. So whenever I do visit the city, I'll just send a message to everyone that I know in the city, like, hey, what's up? Anybody around in town? Let's get together for dinner. Something just very easy, doesn't take much time, and you can create several groups for different people with different interests and just manage it via social media. And the final part of, so like what to do, I would say is positioning yourself as a thought leader. When I first started training for my first Ironman, I was a complete beginner and I didn't know what to do, but I also wanted to get help to help me hold myself accountable for. Now I signed up, so I don't want to back out, but if I announce it to the world, there's also like pressure. So I actually sought out to become guest blogger for Outside magazine. So I had a column on Outside where I would blog about my journey of doing my first Swedish Classic and my first Ironman. And through that, I also met other people that are along the journey. And this is, if you are running a company and you want to get your products and service out there, getting a thought leadership position, you can do this type of marketing with a very low budget or no budget. And now I'm going to share some real life examples of just putting those things that we talk about together and how that had led to me skiing to North Pole. I was pursuing my passion, climbing in Elbrus in Russia, and I met a group of Chinese people on the mountain, and they invited me to come hop out with them. However, I wasn't able to at this particular time, but we did exchange contact details. So a half year later, they did call me when they came to Sweden, came to Norway, and told me they are actually on an expedition to North Pole. And it just so happens there was one vacancy on their team, and they asked if I want to come and join them as an assistant guide because they saw me on the mountain in Elbrus and they knew I was very capable. And with only 1 day notice, I decided to say yes to this adventure. And this led to further adventures later on with the Chinese team going to US for the very first time to ski Denali. And later I also helped the team with some business deals, purchasing hotels in Florida. So one thing led to the other. I think it's difficult to plan this kind of thing ahead, but if you say yes, you would have a great experience. Similar to how I managed to get to Necker Island with Richard Branson. It actually started long time ago in 2004 when I started doing windsurfing. A year later, I decided to try kite surfing. And during those years, I started to meet other kite surfers. And one of them was the world champion kite surfer, Susie Mai. And she happened to be a good friend with Richard Branson and invited me to come along. So I think it's a lot of these are chance encounters. However, if you continue with your interest, it will lead to somewhere that you would enjoy. And the other thing is to know your strengths and play to your strengths. And my strength has been the connector between different worlds, between whether it's business and technology or between East and the West. So I was in China for the Chinese Olympics and got to know, for example, the people that put the Olympic flag on top of Mount Everest for the Olympic game. And eventually it led to me meeting Jack Ma of Alibaba and introduced Ali Cloud to Sweden. And after a few years of spending in the US and not dealing so much with China, now I'm back and starting working with the Chinese again since this year. So I think this kind of thing, any relationship that I build, if it's a good relationship, it's the kind of relationship you can return to time after time. And this had led to me to create my own retreat. And this has led me to run my own online event. And all of this is not something that happened over the year or over a decade, but it's so like a lifelong passion. I was the president student society when I was a student at Oxford. I loved getting people together. And similar when I moved back to Sweden, I started Startup Sweden, connecting entrepreneurs and investors and people who are interested in this together. And later on, as my personal interest developed into more health and wellness and personal development, that's why I started Upgrade. So I think everything that I create is more reflection of the stage in life I am. And I enjoy inspiring people. I enjoy this growth journey together with them. So I'm definitely in this for the long game. And I think knowing when to say no and what to say no is probably even more important than what do you say yes to, because your time is so limited. So check with yourself, is this your true passion or you're just appealing to your ego? Are you delivering value to your team or you're getting something out, your message out? There are lots of things that look like progress, but isn't. And I've taken this from the Y Combinator startup school. So just meeting people without knowing why doesn't really lead you anywhere. And finally, my last point, I'm running a little bit over time, is that for me, I like to keep things super playful, very flexible. If I'm interested in something, I go very deep into it. And you obviously have your own journeys and your own talent. It is about how do you play to your strengths and keep at it. Maybe it's not happening today or tomorrow, but if you keep at it for 10 years, 15 years, you will see your results. And yeah, welcome to connect with me. I'm Mei Sinsta on Instagram, Mei's Twitter, Twitter, Mei's WeChat on WeChat if anyone's on it. And I'll be at the exhibitor booth with the Chinese team if you want to learn a little bit more about my current projects. So that's all. And yeah, I think we have some time for questions, maybe 10 minutes. So I'm just going to read through some of these chats and try to answer it. Okay, let's see if we can add people onto this panel and we can have an actual discussion. Yeah, it's a very fast-paced trying to get through everything on time. Hey. Hello, welcome to join us. Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I just saw I could join the actual video.
Yeah, great. Let's make this. This is what we make it. We can make it to whatever we want.
Amazing platform.
Yeah, exactly. My first time trying this out as well.
Is it possible for you to share some of your slides somehow? I don't know.
Yeah, sure. I can share this link maybe in the chat if people are interested. Or I can do it after the session. I need to figure out exactly how to do that.
Cool. Thank you. I will say goodbye.
Bye-bye. Okay, I have a question from Louise about thought leadership position. Any comments on how to use the medium as main platform to share content? I think starting with, I would go starting with a platform that already have big audience. For example, TED or TEDx has already an audience. If you manage to have interesting story to tell and able to share it on their platform, that's a great start. Otherwise, there's lots of different communities like Startup Grind, Fuck Up Nights. There are lots of different organizations that will bring on speakers to share their stories. And I think that will be a great platform, either that or through different podcasts. I think usually just whichever medium that you find interesting, that you're following, and it never hurts to just send them email. Hey, I have something to tell. Do you think this is something that would match your audience? Okay, another question. What would be your number one tactic to connect yourself with someone super important, busy, or famous? I think I would keep my point really sharp and trying to find if there's a common interest. For example, with Richard Branson, he was very interested in ocean preservation. He's interested in kite surfing. So there's a common interest, and he's obviously very, very open and social. So he would come and party with us. I remember the first time I met him, I didn't want to steal his time because he's so busy and there are lots of people that want to pitch their products and services. And I didn't have idea that I wanted to sell. So I really was just there enjoying my time and enjoying my dinner. And at one point, I think he's the kind of person that really notices other people in the room. So he actually came to me and started asking me questions about what I'm being up to, and he saw that I was working too hard, so he gave me a back massage, and he helped me to make myself really comfortable, and that allowed me to ask him questions I maybe wouldn't have been able to or dare to. So I told him I really like the souvenirs that they had on the island, on his island. However, the shop was closed that day I was there. So I was wondering if it's possible for me to buy some souvenirs. And he said, actually, yeah, why don't you come back tomorrow? Tomorrow we can go kite surfing. Tomorrow we can do, have lunch with my wife. So he definitely was the one that helped to make that, take that step to make me feel comfortable. And later on, I was invited back for a few more occasions. So I don't know if I could have plans for that thing, but I think just trying to be very respectful does help, and make yourself approachable, and make sure that you have some shared interest, because you are in the room because you're supposed to be there. I think the other thing is also it's not the end. If that interaction didn't happen in these particular circumstances, there's so many more opportunities. There are so many other people that might be a better fit. So I always believe that the right people will eventually meet each other. The right opportunity will come. So I think just bear that in mind, and I think anyone can lead to awesome opportunities. You never know. It could be the taxi driver, it could be the shopkeeper, it could be anyone. A question from Lawrence: where do you get most value from chance encounters or pre-planned events? I personally tend to get more value from chance encounters just because of the industries I'm working in very futuristic technology where basically nobody knows much about anything. So in an area where there's so many unknowns, I tend to keep those options open because I just know I don't know enough about this area. I'm open for suggestions. Especially similar if you're doing business in China, it's very different from doing business in the West. If you go to dinner, those people who are at the dinner might not be the people you ultimately will do business with, but they might know other people that are more suitable for you. And one strategy I would have is always keep the conversation open, always have an extra chair at the table, always be prepared for things changing. That helps doing business, either it's in China or doing things in blockchain. So, or things just very new or changing very fast. I'm just reading through the comments. Daniel said his goal is to get knowledge, how to grow network and market companies. I think one of the things is really just go out there and get comfortable with it, like become a part of your life, and enjoy yourself. It's all good fun. All right, I think my time is up. And if you're interested to learn more about the current projects I'm working with China, welcome to join us at the Xi'an High Tech Zoom. It's one of the exhibitor sessions, and I'll be there for the next hour. See you.